Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another riveting episode of Much Ado about real estate. Today, thought I would talk about the chronology of a transaction from the seller's perspective, from the listing perspective. So, just going from initial consultation to closing, and just a few little things, signposts on the way. So you start, decide you want to sell your house, and um, whether you use an agent or not, you know, depends on the first step here. But if you use an agent, agent will come over to your house and go over the home with you, go over, you know, what likelihood of selling it is in its current state, the um, estimated value of the home from the realtor perspective, not an appraisal, very important. We do a CMA, comparative market analysis, but we have to see the inside of the home, various features about the home to really be able to say what its market value could be relative to the comparables, the comps in the area. Um, Within a close enough radius, sold or pending within 3 to 6 months of when you're going to be listing your house. Um, there's going over things you might want to upgrade or fix in your home. There's sort of two different categories of those things. There's things that increase the appraised value of the home, so things that have a direct quantifiable return on investment, usually bedrooms and bathrooms, sometimes some HVAC things, or it depends on the home. There's a lot of variety there. And then some things don't increase the amount you could potentially sell your home for, but they increase the sellability of the home. So, it depends on the neighborhood, the price of the home, generally. There's things that just make the home more likely to appeal to a certain type of buyer or to buyers in a certain time frame, generally, and call that sellability. So, two different factors there. You'll decide what you want to take on, what you don't want to take on, and then we'll go over the paperwork, the representation agreement, explain all that to you, sign on paperwork. Then we put a lockbox on the property somewhere. Some people use a smart box, a Supra, that has a Bluetooth thing. There's an app on a phone that lets you get into it if you're an agent. And then there's a combination lockbox, just a classic one with a key. And then home goes on the MLS. There's time frame rules around after you have that agreement, when you have to post it on the MLS as an agent. So it goes on the MLS, and then other agents can see that it's on the market. If they have interested buyers, they will schedule showings. You'll go through the showings. If the buyer's represented by an agent, then the agent will obviously show them the home, either with the Supra or get the lockbox code from the listing agent. So in this example, me, if you use me as the listing agent, then if the interested buyer wants to put in an offer, they will write that offer. The offer states the details of the offer, special stipulations about closing or financing or all kinds of things. There could be occupancy things in there. Sometimes the offer is contingent on the sale of the buyer's other home. Yeah, there's a lot of variety in that. And there's a time frame to respond. It could be 24, 48 hours. Just depends. But so go over that offer, called a PSA, a purchase and sale agreement, is what the form is called. Colloquially called an offer. But so you can counter You can reject or you can accept. If you counter, then they can counter, and back and forth. Once an agreement is decided on and all the signatures are on there and everything, then the home is marked pending, and depends on what was in the offer, but if there's an appraisal and a home inspection, those have to be scheduled. So appraiser comes out, home inspector comes out. All the other inspections have to be done within the inspection period designated in that purchase and sale agreement. So anything can be written in there. 14 days is seen a lot, but it can be anything. And that's the amount of time that all the inspections have to be done in. And the replace proposal, another form, has to be submitted by the end of that period, which says, based on our inspections, here's what we're asking for. Either repair this, replace that, or in lieu of repairs, asking for a certain credit off the cost of the home. That's separate from covering closing costs of the buyer and things like that, or agent fees on the buyer side as concessions on behalf of the buyer. There's particular language for it. But anyway, so once all that's agreed on, and assuming it progresses from there, you don't have to accept that repair replacement proposal. Sometimes the transaction ends right there, but assuming you proceed, then the title company sends paperwork out, often in digital form these days, to both parties. Once title has all that back from everyone, including confirmation of information from the agents, then the closing date is coming up. There is a final inspection, sometimes 3 days prior, sometimes morning of. Within 3 days or morning of closing, the buyer will walk the property to make sure that the home is in the same condition as when they initially saw it, and that the things that the contract, the purchase and sale agreement, or the final counter in the series of back and forth counters, that the things that said to be staying with the home are still in the home, and that they're the same ones. So sometimes it'll say refrigerator, but sometimes the seller will take a nicer refrigerator that they've had for a while and they like it and replace it with a less nice one, or something like that. So I often record serial numbers for the appliances that are going to stay so that I can confirm that they're the same ones when I'm on the buyer side, because that does happen. And then you get to closing. We sign all the disclosures, all the documents. Hopefully you read all of those, and then the payoffs are done to the lender. If you have debt remaining on your home, those lenders have to be paid off. Prorated taxes, property taxes, things like that, all your prorations are paid out. And then checks are sent out to the parties who get checks after the end of the transaction, like agents. Sometimes contractors are paid at that point. Depends on how the transaction was written. And then hopefully that all goes well. And then there's a 3-day revision period in case there's mistakes by title or legal involved in that. So when you wake up on the morning of the 4th day after closing, that's really when you know that you're good, that you have the house. So that's sort of the really zoomed out view. There's a lot of things in there in terms of occupancy. Sometimes you have occupancy agreements where the buyer will move into the home prior to closing. or the seller needs to be in the home after closing for a period of time for some reason. And then, like, if the buyer moves in prior to closing, there's questions around who pays the utility during that time. What if something is damaged? How does liability work? There's all kinds of things to work out there. So, but that's the general idea. And if you don't want to have to think about any of that and just get a professional advisor on your side for that whole process, yeah, give an agent a call. Give me a call. So, appreciate you all. Hope you all having a good day, and see you in the next one. Bye.